in the end, if they didn't make their numbers and it's
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. How are you feeling today? I trust that you're feeling quite a bit better today. Let me tell you that I am feeling a lot better because I have decided now to take my energies and put the energy into action, into things that I have control of. And I want you all to take this ride with me, if you will. We all should take this ride together for, I don't want to quite call it the resistance yet. We know it's going to be a resistance because when Donald Trump starts doing evil things will require a resistance. Right now, he has us in what's called a preparative mode, a preparation mode, that if we must get into resistance mode, we will. But like I am saying, I feel energized. I feel ready to go, and I feel that we have something to work with and build on. So it's time to end the despair. Lee Grant, welcome to Politics Done Right. Lee Grant from Montgomery County says, welcome to the Trump's New World Order. It will be a new world order, that is for sure. Whether it can be maintained, it's a different story. And I don't know if some of you listened to what I spoke about BRIC. Uh, because of the way Trump operates, and because it will be a new world order, it will be a new world order with a much, much weaker America. Because now the foreign countries will really take seriously to ensuring that BRICS is realized a bit more forcefully and other alternative currencies and transaction systems are employed or be on the ready because they know they have an incoherent party that is now in charge of the United States. So Michael Rudnin is in the house from Brooklyn, New York. Patrick Magner is in the house from Houston, Texas. We have I saw somebody else that came in, but I missed it. But you know, Magner has to come in with his signature meow. And Eric Hayes is in the house. How are my peeps doing? Great to have you all here. Egberto, big one from Bernie Sanders for the screen. Actually, I have the article. I did completely read it. I was supposed to read it this morning, but I will put it on the screen and you're going to give me a reason to read it aloud because I do want to cover that article. Let me get something posted at Daily Kos first. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and start there. Thank you, Radnan. Let's go ahead and start there. Patrick Lavelle, Trump bombs the con. Hey, Patrick, how you doing? Well, let me see if this is a real. Is this Patrick or is this Patrick's account? Let me know because if this is Patrick, I want to give you a real time interview after I'm done reading Radnin's stuff. So if this is Patrick Lavelle, one of our former regulars that we've interviewed several times, the person who is the author. Well, we'll talk about it if it's you. Bernie Sanders statements on the results of the 2024 election. Senator Bernie Sanders today released the following statements in response to the outcome of the 2024 election. And I want you guys to listen in detail because he's right. It should come as no great surprise that a Democratic Party which has abandoned working class people would find the working class has abandoned them. First, it was the white working class, and now it is Latino and Black workers as well. While the Democratic leadership defends the status quo, the American people are angry and want change, and they're right. Today, while the very rich are doing phenomenally well, 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and we have more income and wealth inequality than ever before. Unbelievably, real inflation accounted for weekly wages for the average American worker are actually lower now than they were 50 years ago. Today, despite an explosion in technology and worker productivity, many young people will have a worse standard of living than their parents. And many of them worry that artificial intelligence and robotics will make a bad situation even worse. Today, despite spending far more per capita than other countries, we remain the only wealthy nation not to guarantee health care to all as a human right, and we pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. We alone, among other countries, or among major countries, cannot even guarantee paid family and medical leave. Today, despite strong opposition from a majority of Americans, we continue to spend billions funding the extremist Netanyahu government's all out war against the Palestinian people, which has led to the horrific humanitarian disaster of mass malnutrition and the starvation of thousands of children. Will the big money interests and well paid consultants who control the Democratic Party learn any real lessons from the disastrous campaign? Will they understand the pain and political alienation that tens of millions of Americans are experiencing? Do they have any ideas as to how we can take on the increasingly powerful oligarchy, which has so much economic and political power? Probably not. In the coming weeks and months, those of us concerned about grassroots democracy and economic justice need to have some very serious political discussions. And let me put that on the screen. I didn't realize it wasn't on the screen, but there it is on the screen. But here is the deal, people. That is a very, very accurate assessment by Mr. Bernie. Bernie left out something important that I'm going to talk about in a minute because it's a bit more complex that the win that Donald Trump did and how he put that win together that has to be addressed again. And I'm covering some of that in the pieces that I'm doing here. It is true that all parties, I repeat, it is true that all parties abandon the working class. It is also true that the Republican Party gives a semblance of populism supporting the working class, but has no policies to support the working class. At least Biden, not as far as needed to go, Biden more so than Obama, Biden more so than Clinton, Biden more so than any other president has instituted policies. Let's go ahead and look at the Reinvestment Act. We can also look at others that did do some good. In fact, until the Republicans came back into power in Congress in 2022, we cut poverty in half, and we were starting to institute policies that remembers the working class. And some of what Kamala was doing, not as forceful as we would like it, because again, she is in the neoliberal wing of the party. Okay, she is there. Now that said, she would have created something like having Medicare at home, meaning those people that are taking care of family members would get Medicare assistance while they're taking care of family, which is very expensive. She would have also helped in investment in small businesses, and all that sort of stuff would be good. The one thing missing from her was something she used to believe in called Medicare for all. Medicare for all is the albeit, because if we have Medicare for all, we open the door for innovation. Anybody who wants to create new products, anybody who has great ideas, no longer would they have to worry about having to find health insurance they could afford, because within our social contract, we would in fact have Medicare for all, and you would have Medicare, something that is one of the biggest drags on our economy. Also, we would take more seriously, if we truly believe in the working class, things like family leave paid for, and we would offset that from companies. In other words, we would create a tax policy that doesn't overburden small companies. You know why a lot of small companies don't like to hear when you talk about minimum wage, or when you talk about family leave or sick leave, or the reason these companies, small companies, a baker, a candlestick maker, one of these small companies, they can't afford it. But the social contract that we have should give them leverage. Meaning, if we took care of the social status, the social needs of people from a national level, and let the businesses concentrate on doing what businesses do, then every business would be playing on the same playing field. These are things that are progressive. These are things that everybody supports. These are things that if we did it, the working class would come back. Maybe. And this is the part that we have been working with Bernie Sanders for over a decade to solve. Bernie Sanders does not understand Bernie Sanders understands the economics very well. Bernie Sanders is also a very good guy. He's not a racist. He's not a homophobe. He's not a sexist. He's not any of those things. Unfortunately, what Bernie does not understand is the rest of America does not reflect Bernie's morals. And because the rest of America does not reflect Bernie's morals, you have a missing component in how America must campaign. Because as you will see with another video that we have here, what gave Donald Trump the win was the disinformation campaign, was the racist, homophobic, sexist, misogynist campaign that was micro targeted to different populations. There is a group of men in this chat group. I don't remember the name of the chat group. I just learned this from the president of Indivisible yesterday. That the Trump folks targeted. They targeted these guys. It's a group of misfits that have their own group. They know they're misfits. They're between the ages of 18 and 21, just guys, and they're just guys that are hurting, guys that believed it. They're looking for something. Those guys were targeted. They go into these different groups. They go into the different podcasts like we have with Grogan and others, and they target these people with specialized ad. They go into different religious communities. They target Muslims by saying, Kamala is anti-Muslim and pro-Jew. They go to the Jews and say Kamala is anti-Jew and pro-Muslim. It was all a disinformation target. And Bernie, in his solving the economic problem that he's talking about, doesn't understand the carnality of a racist argument that disinforms with a modicum of truth. So you have to take care of both of these issues at the same time. You have to have the policy, but you also have to have that education part that I talk about on my program. Whenever we unite the barrios, the ghettos, and Appalachia, we would have beaten the plutocracy, because the plutocracy flourished in keeping us apart. The plutocracy, the oligarchy, the wealthy, the neoliberalists, they flourish in us being at each other's throats for all these other identity reasons. But we must have identity politics until the differences between identities are mitigated. To the economic differences and the rights differences between all these groups are actually mitigated. So it is important. Bernie's message is true, but it doesn't go far enough, nor does it understand the full picture of what's going on in America. And I think I gave the other quarter that Bernie is missing in this statement that he released. I hope, back in Arizona, when Black Lives Matter was marching for Sandra Bland and trying to get Netroots Nation to recognize all these issues, it was great that Bernie came and spoke to us, and Bernie went ahead and modified his stump speech to include some of what I just mentioned there that has to be tackled as well. But again, Bernie, whenever he releases these statements, always tries to get away from the realities of race in America. And I hope at some point in time he realizes that he has to include that in the narrative. All right, let's see here. Before I go, hey, Tommy Cruz, ¿cómo estás, mi hermano? I haven't seen you in a while. I haven't been on your show in a while. Can you do a phone interview on my show this Sunday? Do you still have the same cell number? I have the same cell phone number. I don't. It depends on the time. I'm going to an event on Sunday where we're honoring 5 people for the Peace and Justice Award. It's called the Peacemaker Awards that we're having. So Sunday, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it. But if you want to pre-tape something, we can do that. Or if you want to do it another week, I love your show. Anyway, Paul Fleming is in the house. How you doing, Paul? Melanie Keelan from Barcelona, Spain is in the house. All right, Michael says, Egberto, why did Trump win? Democrats couldn't rally their base. Kamala Harris only managed 68 million votes, while Joe Biden scored 81 million votes in 2020. When Democrats fail to push a left populist economic agenda while cozying up to small amount of disaffected never Trump Republicans, Democrats fail to score the people's ire to come out to vote. When people are feeling economic hardship, even the message of losing their productivity right wasn't enough. Again, that's a false narrative, Michael. I mean, look, Trump got 3 million people less than he got before. The people are just in a bad mood. And it's not only that they're in a bad mood, they've lost faith. So it is partially true that a better economic message would do, but Kamala's economic message was not bad. Kamala's economic message tied to what Biden has already done. I'm sorry. It's the best any president has done thus far. It is not left enough for us at all. But if we want to be honest about what was result from an economic standpoint, it is the best that has occurred since Roosevelt. It is the best that has occurred since Roosevelt. And I think we have to be honest about that. It is something else. And that racial component and that misogynist component is something we have to take seriously. And let me just, I want you to play, in fact, I'm going to play a piece by Claire McCaskill right now. Claire McCaskill captures it. She understands what women must go through, and specifically a woman of color. Look, a flawed character like Donald Trump, faced with somebody like Kamala Harris. I am sorry. There's something defective in the American psyche that would allow that to occur. I want you to listen to McCaskill and the panel here, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Claire McCaskill will determine. You okay?
I think I'm okay.
Tell me what you're thinking.
Well, I'm so proud. I'm so proud of her. I don't think people realize how hard it is to get to where she was. As a woman, getting elected DA, it's not easy, guys. People don't trust women to be in charge of making decisions about life and death and crime and being, frankly, a supervisor in some ways over police. Her fighting through the primary thicket of California politics to become Attorney General, really hard. I mean, this is really hard stuff. For her to be selected as vice president after what I think she would tell you was a very disappointing presidential race, where I think she kind of lost her footing and was listening too much to consultants, frankly, and it didn't really exude who she was. And then to be vice president and to step into the most difficult situation in the world, where she had to be completely loyal to Joe Biden and respectful of the fact that he had chosen her, but yet maneuver in a situation. I mean, such political skill. It is just inspiring. People who don't understand what she had to do to get to this moment. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just very proud of her.
Howman, I don't want to, I want to always be able to articulate the strength of Donald Trump's victory without ever sanitizing the crassness of his message. And so it is vital to share with our audience, whether they are ready to hear it or not, the sweeping victory that he had last night. We must never sanitize or leave out of that sentence that he ran on using the military against the enemies within. He is boasting about the handpicked justices who overturned Roe versus Wade. He said he would protect women whether they liked it or not. He called Nancy Pelosi the B word. His vice president called Vice President Kamala Harris trash the day before yesterday. What has prevailed is almost a perversion of our politics and of message sending and almost symbolic attachment to a movement that is, as Claire said, an FU or a middle finger to the establishment and the elite. But there are a whole lot of women in this country, I think, who feel like collateral damage.
And that's exactly right. The hoops that, look, Kamala Harris was in a channel. Anything she said too much on one side, the left would have killed her. And anything on the right, she said too much, the right would have killed her. I mean, if you take a look at her brother Rudden, they said, oh, look, she didn't speak up against a billionaire. No, but implicitly in the way she speaks, when she talks about an opportunity economy, she's pretty much saying that without saying the billionaires are the evil beings that they are, because they are. But she cannot say it. If she goes and says one thing, the national media goes with it, destroys. I mean, she was within a tightrope, and as a woman, she can say very little until we get rid of our sexist, misogynist being. When you see those tears from Claire McCaskill, look, it's a hard game these women are playing. And we have to start having empathy for what women have to go through in this patriarchal society. Like I said, Biden did very, very well comparatively. Not what we want. We want complete family leave. They had it partially in the Investment Act, in the Recovery Act. We also want Medicare for all. That's going to take a hell of a lot of work. We also want family leave. That was partially in there as well. And we want some sort of basic income, right? That will take time. But what we have to do is learn, as Bernie is saying in here, is learn how to talk to all sides, not forgetting or not putting on the back burners that we don't understand that misogyny, racism, sexism, and xenophobia are used in a marketing, in a directed manner to confuse the issues. That is what we have to learn to solve, right? And as we talk about disinformation, a piece, they did a piece as well. Robinson did a piece as well, or he spoke about again. And I love the answer that Joe Scarborough gave. I know a lot of you don't like Joe Scarborough, but his answer pretty much says, we are on a particular playing field. That's a playing field we have. It doesn't make sense to complain about, oh, Trump is disinforming people. He's putting out a whole lot of bad information. We know that. What are you going to do about it? I want you to go ahead and listen to this piece here because I want to expand on it afterwards.
And really go into the numbers. Why did so many fewer people bother to vote this time? Right. Not just for Harris, but the overall vote totals are lower, and a lot of people didn't show up. That surprised me. And so why was that? I
spoke to people who were canvassing in all the different swing states, some people I knew really well, and they were stunned at how disinformed people were that they were talking to. They were just stunned at what they were saying because it was just beyond even close to the truth. So that's a big part of this. It's not all of it. And Joe, I know we need to get to our other guests, but I just think if we have to, obviously there's a lot of questions that's going to be asked and looked into and really legitimate reasons to look within for sure.
Right.
At the same time, the landscape is a sea of voices and websites and places to go for information that is simply not true, and then is backed up again and again and again and again until it becomes narrative.
You fight on the battlefield that is before you. Mm-hmm. And so if there is disinformation on the battlefield that is before you, you can run off of that battlefield screeching and crying with your arms thrown up in the air, or you can figure out how to engage in that battlefield and win. It's that simple. And I understand there is a ton of disinformation out there, and it is sickening. I understand that. I also understand the disinformation will only be worse 4 years from now. So the question is, what will Democrats or what will independents or what will Republicans who don't support an authoritarian version of government, what are they going to do right now instead of complaining? Because complaining doesn't get their...
Exactly. You've got to stop complaining, and you just got to do something about it. Hey, Bridge MCP, welcome aboard. I have your stuff to put on the screen. Now, what I'm doing here, Bridge, is important. It's not about Monday night quarterbacking. It's about listening to what, Bernie gave a good response. But it's also important for us to have the full picture. I'm going to talk about, and I'm writing an article about it, what we really have to do. And in effect, I am saying we got to just dump what the party talks about. These are a bunch of old elitist fogies that don't understand the masses. They don't understand the masses. But what Breach has on the screen right now says the following. Want to blow Republicans' mind? Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor retires. President Biden appoints Kamala Harris to Sotomayor vacancy with a lame duck Democratic Senate majority. Supreme Court Justice Kamala Harris. Wow. I didn't think about that, Breach. What I would have liked to see, I thought he may have resigned, make her president, given that America has a dysfunction in putting a woman in the presidency, just to say, I'm giving it to you. But that is even better. That is even better. Wow. I love that idea, but I don't think they'll do it. But man, do I love that idea. She's already vetted, right? She was vetted by the people because they elected her as vice president. She was vetted because she was senator. She was vetted. I mean, absolutely so. Let's go ahead and do that. That would be a great act. I would love to see that. Anyway, before I get to the other subject, Patrick Lavelle, are you there? The telephone number is 281 823-7747. 281-823-7747 if you're dear Patrick, because I want to ask you a couple of questions about what's about to come. This assuming that account is not just somebody using Patrick's account. So Patrick Lavelle, give me a call now if that is you. All right, let's see what else we got here. There's something that Brother Fleming said that I want to read, and it goes as follows. Where is it? It has to do with, let's see what he said. I want to read it because it really touched me. President imposed, not that one. Fleming. Okay, here it is. Paul Fleming. There is a cult of ignorance in the United States, and there has always been. The strain of anti-intellectualism has been a constant thread winding its way. Okay, let's see. All right, is this Patrick? Hello. All right. Take your phone off mute. Yeah, is this Patrick?
This is Patrick's colleague, Roseanne, and Patrick's unavailable today. Would Egberto like him to call in tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific time?
Yeah, but make it deeper into the show. Make it be at, let's say, about 1:15 Pacific time or so.
Perfect. I will send him a message now, and we'll get him on there tomorrow with you.
All right.
Keep
Take care.
Up the good fight. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a wonderful rest of your day, my sister. All right. So let's see what we got here. Bear with me, folks, as I recalibrate here. So I love that, Paul. That is an important statement. That anti-intellectualism. They like whenever you say something smart or speak eloquently, they want to call you an elitist, not realizing that the elitists are not the ones that talk like that. The elitists are the ones who want to make you believe they know stuff they don't. Okay, Mike Cisak says Egberto is the sexist, racist, bigoted one here. Okay, coming from you, Mike, if that's how you define me, I take that as a badge of honor because it's a perfect projection. So thank you, brother. I appreciate that. All right, let's continue. I'm scrolling down. Hey, Bruce Pollard is in the house. He says Bernie is operating outside the two-party system. That is good. I think that if the 2020 election was rigged, they are outside the two-party system too. Interesting. Welcome aboard. Kamike Griff says climate change, chaos, tribalism, and the morbidly rich are making things worse every day. And that is why we have got to cut it by the roots. You're absolutely right. Kamike Griff, thank you for being here. What else have we got here before I get to the other video? What else have we got here? What else have we got here? Jay says, thank you everyone who is forcefully and eloquently stating the vicious facts, which are even fatally detrimental to each of us. Misogyny, racism, chosen blindness to the environment, etc. Exactly, Jay. You nailed it. Michael Rodden says xenophobia is definitely a thing. Early today, spoke to a Trump supporter. I asked why he voted Trump. He said, because New York City is putting up Latino immigrants in hotels, and that when their time in those hotels are over, they turn to crime. I told him they were coming here for work, menial labor. He said no one can survive on low wages here, so we might as well send them back where they came from. Yep, it's been a rough day. I'm going to tell you something though that I am going to, and I want to say this correctly, that I understand how Trump is using xenophobia because of our policy of how we put up the people that are coming over the border. And let me explain. When refugees come over the border and we go ahead and scoop them up, and I use that word lightly, and make sure that they have accommodation, and we make sure that they have food, and we make sure that they're taken care of because they are potentially refugees or potentially what do you call it? Asylees or whatever you call it, asylum seekers. So we provide for them. We do the ethical thing. We do the moral thing. If you are sitting down in New York or Chicago or one of these places and you see your city going out of its way to ensure that these immigrants, and remember, I am an immigrant, that these immigrants are housed and fed and clothed, there is absolutely no excuse for our social welfare system to do the same for our people. Okay? But remember, the way government works, they fall under different categories, right? There is a budget that is created to take care of refugees and asylum seekers, and then there's a social safety net that we have that is lousy to protect us, the American people. What those people that are xenophobes don't understand is a benign country that follows international law. When you have somebody comes over to be a refugee, it is by international law that you have to treat them with a certain level of compassion. But again, that level of compassion is the same level of compassion we should give to our people that have been born here or that are legal here or elsewhere. These are not mutually exclusive. And what we have allowed by not having the proper social safety net, we have allowed that xenophobia to build up. All of that is implicit within Bernie's statement. Okay? It's all implicit within Bernie's statement. And no, Eric, it won't bankrupt the country. This country is so damn rich. The only problem with this country is that the billionaire has convinced people like Eric Hayes and Mike Cisak that they've earned it. And by convincing them that they've earned it, what these billionaires have done is monopolize the wages that otherwise belong to us all. But again, it takes different way. It takes critical thinking to do that. And of course, guess what? Guess what? We are teaching the new generation because of MAGA policy not to think critically. Okay? Let's remember that. All right, let's see what else we got here. Thank you for the defense, Jay. Jay says, this old Valley girl grandma from Los Angeles, he's the bomb. My dear beautiful lady from Los Angeles, I appreciate calling me the bomb. All right, anything, what else we got here? Let's see. Okay, I got some more videos, and let me set this up here. I gave you the disinformation. So, look, let's expand a little bit more about Kamala's loss, right? They were trying to create a narrative that somehow the black folks were not sufficiently supporting the Harris ticket, as if it's on 13% of the population, which blacks, the black identity is defined as that percent of the population, as if it's their duty to do what's right for America. What about everybody else? Latino men failed. White women, I'm talking about the majority, okay? And this is nothing personal on anybody. I'm Latino, by the way. I'm a Latino man, okay? I feel several identities. I'm a Latino man, I'm a black man, all of that. So Latino men for Harris failed. White women for Harris failed. White men for Harris failed. Latina women for Harris, success. Black women came out bonkers. Black men, success. Again, we have to learn to put the blame where it's at. And the problem, even with some of what I said Bernie speaks about, is that he has to have the entire and full picture when you're making some of these statements. So let's go ahead and listen to what Joyanne Reid had to say here, because I think it is important, her statement, and then we'll go right into Basil's statement, because what he said is as well is apropos. So let's go ahead and start with Joyanne Reid, and then we'll proceed with Basil.
But in the end, if they didn't make their numbers and essentially exceed the numbers that Joe Biden had in the suburbs, and I think we have to be blunt about why. Black voters came through for Kamala Harris. White women voters did not. That is what it appears happened in that state, is that if you can't flip enough white women, and we've talked about this on this set numerous times, is that you have a state where you've got a 6-week abortion or a 12-week abortion. I think theirs might be 12 weeks.
Yep.
But it's a state where women lost their reproductive rights, where there was a very heavy push to get women to focus on not putting in place, re-electing, putting back into the White House the person who was responsible for taking those rights away and restoring them. But that message obviously was not enough to get enough white women to vote for Vice President Harris, a fellow woman. This will be the second opportunity that white women in this country have to change the way that they interact with the patriarchy. And, God bless Shannon Watts, who has tried to have that conversation. But if people aren't receptive to it, and if people vote more, party line or more on race than on gender and on protecting their gender, there's really not much more that you can do but tell people what the risks are and leave it to them to do the right thing.
And, I got into trouble at Daily Kos because when Hillary Clinton lost, I wrote a whole blog about saying women have it much harder than anyone else, including black men. The fact that Obama could be president and Hillary couldn't And again, both of them are qualified. Both of them are neoliberals. Okay, but one could get elected, and we bring Kamala as well, and the same thing happens, and we see the same breakdown. That apprehension to work and support a woman, and especially now a woman of color, that had implications. A lot of those older women, in fact, what Joyanne Reid did with the numbers, and this is important. Joyanne Reid showed that, Gen Z and all these other Gen Z, everybody below Gen X supported Kamala. They supported Kamala. But Gen X, they just couldn't get away from the patriarchy. They just couldn't do it. And it is something that has to be worked on. Because if you are willing, because of your own racial prejudices, to put your daughter's life, your daughter's reproductive life in jeopardy, that tells you about the psychological chains that your mind is in. I want you to listen to Basil, because he goes a step further between the Latino, Black, etc., along with our former congressman. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Basil, your top takeaways. What message did American voters send?
Well, a good chunk of the American voter wanted to take their country back, and we will soon see what that means. There are levels of sexism and racism that clearly a lot of people in this country are willing to tolerate, which is also something that, we may have woken up in the same country in a sense, but that becomes much more clear this morning. I would also say that there were conversations for over a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks about how Black men weren't doing their part. Black people did their part and did everything they needed to do, including the Black woman who ran. So this isn't, and going to a point that Mike Memoli had made earlier, this isn't a Democratic problem per se, because it's not a problem that can be solved with a campaign. These are deep-rooted issues in our country that we absolutely need to address. And frankly, I think that, and as we're talking about big D democratic politics, the coalition that we had relied on is now 30 years old, and it has frayed. And that is something that I think as a party going forward, folks need to figure out what that coalition is going to look like.
Julian, your thoughts on that, because then I'm interested in Basil's part about a coalition that is frayed. How do you see it?
Well, I mean, I think that remains to be seen, right? We've seen other high watermarks for Republicans, George W. Bush getting about 44% of the vote. Reagan did well in the 1980s. There was a time when people thought of the Latino community as voters more as up for grabs, right? Then when Obama changed that a few years ago and got basically 73%, and then everybody started talking about the community as just Democrats. I think this election showed that they are more up for grabs. And I think the message that resonated was an economic message. Largely, the Latino community is diverse, obviously, different places and so forth, but it's basically a working class community and a very aspirational one. And Trump lies a lot. But one of the things he said in every speech was, when I was president, we had the greatest economy, the greatest economy, the greatest economy. And look what we have now with high gas prices and high grocery prices. And I think that enough people bought that. And we're going to spend a lot of time, I know, trying to untangle that. But fundamentally, I think that was the biggest factor with the community.
And back to Basil's point again, I mean, did the community do their part? Did the Latino community do their part in this election?
Yeah, I think this narrative is setting in that worries me somehow, that blames the Latino community. And I think that you got to give every community their agency, right? I mean, they're responding like anybody else would. On top of that, even if you believe the exit poll, 53% of Latinos supported Kamala Harris, right? And so it's still a majority and a governing positive part of the Democratic coalition. And I think that Democrats need to build on that and really, really understand what happened. They basically got to do the analog of what Republicans did after Romney lost in 2012. They did that autopsy to figure it out. Yeah. And Democrats, I think, need to figure that out.
I got to say, and this is not, and I want to be clear, this is not about finger pointing to specific communities. It's not. But there was finger pointing. in saying that this community of black folk, black men in particular, but black people in general, what are we going to do? Are we going to get behind the candidate? And that happened. So my point is not so much.
But that was a discussion that happened in both sides of the aisle.
And there was some,
listen,
there was some growth that Trump saw in places like Wisconsin, right?
I have
with members of the black community, black voters.
He was going to pick people off in different communities anyway. That's to be expected. But my point is that, over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking a lot about who's going to do their part. And the folks that need to do their part did their part. But I don't want to single anybody out. What I do want to single out is the fact that there was blatant racism and sexism in this campaign cycle. And my question is, what are we going to do about that? What are we going to do about the fact that that language was directed towards all of us at this table, whether you're Latino, African American, or as a woman? The language that he used to define and describe Nancy Pelosi in the last day did not seem to matter. And no campaign and no party can really fix that until we find a way forward. And I think that, as you asked me about my takeaway, that to me is the root of all of this, that we have not addressed that core issue in our country.
And he nails it. That's why I wrote that article about don't blame Kamala. It's America. Don't blame Kamala. Look, she's not the perfect candidate. And Trump is a horrendous candidate. But she had policies that were going to help Americans. That Medicare policy that she was talking about, the millions of Americans, including a lot of those women who voted against her, that are taking care of their mothers, their grandmothers, their kids at the same time. And they voted against that. That is sick. And it puts a lot of credence into what Bridge MCP just said when she says, Egberto Willis, I never understood how students failed open book tests. My brother, Dr. Theis, who will be honored this weekend as with a Peacemaker Award at the Houston Peace and Justice Center. Welcome to Politics Done Right, my brother honoree. How are you doing?
Hey, Egberto, how you doing?
I've
been listening to your podcast.
Hold on a second, Doc. Before you say what you want to say, I want to let everybody know this. I am over the pain. I am in action mode now. What do we have to do for the next 2 years? And I have something I want to say about the Congress. Well, go ahead, my brother. Talk to me.
Okay, so I agree with you that racism and misogyny played its part in this election, but you're not going to convince people that they are racist and misogynist and therefore need to change their vote Democratic. The way Democrats have to move forward is the way that they have refused to for basically since 92 at least. Mm-hmm. This has to be a class war. As you say in your book, the only way forward is a class war, right?
Exactly.
Elon Musk,
I'm pointing it
Jeff
now. You're
Bezos,
absolutely right.
Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, those kinds of people need to be made the bad guys, because what's at the heart of this is Americans for 50 years have seen their way of life fall apart. They were made a promise. If you work hard, you will live better than your parents. This is the notion of American exceptionalism. There's something about America. And when Trump says, I'm going to make America great again, he's saying, you're going to get that back. Now, you and I know that giving the wealthy more money is not going to help the working class. But so politics is much more for most people emotional, not rational. And their emotions say we're getting screwed. And Trump gave them an enemy, pounded that enemy home, and gave them reassurance that if they pick him, he will take care of that enemy. And this election, it happened to be undocumented immigrants and wokeness. And Republicans have been very good at selling that to the American people. And we have to, as progressives, change the narrative and say the reason your life is messed up, the reason you can't get ahead is not because of other people like you, it's because of people like Musk and Bezos and Zuckerberg.
Dr. Theis, that is the reason I've learned so much from your class. In fact, I've been to several of his classes because you nailed it. I agree wholeheartedly. And yes, I wrote a book on as I see it, class warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom. Only resort is that class warfare that you speak about, Doc. Now, the reason I brought up the race thing is because what a lot of the folks on the networks are trying to do is they're trying to put this, they're trying to create an alternative story as if the deficiency is intrinsically the woman. As you pointed out right there, the deficiency is intrinsically the message and the ultimate result. First, who's at fault? Donald Trump made everybody else that which is at fault. You are saying define the one as fault, the real person that is at fault, and that is the billionaire, that is the plutocracy, that is the oligarchy.
It is, and Democrats don't want to do it because they are part of it too often. And the networks don't want to do it because Joy-Ann Reid and all those people on MSNBC are making millions of dollars a year, and they're happy not paying taxes.
Exactly. I agree wholeheartedly.
It's going to take grassroots organizing, and this is why I liked Sanders so much, because he wasn't afraid to call a spade a spade.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And Doc, I really think that, Bernie started out with this message. I think, and I love the message that, the statement that he released. I think it need some fine tuning because I think it has to have the full narrative, in my humble opinion. But also, and by the way, while he didn't put it as you put it with the class warfare, it is something that needs to be done.
Yeah. So
anyway, Doc,
there's 4 years to do it. Let's hope the Democrats do it.
Well, I think it's we who are going to do it. I got another call from one of our callers, so let's go ahead and bring her into the discussion. Melissa Bowie, how are you doing?
What's up, Egberto?
I am doing fine. You were just listening to our brother, Dr. Theis, who is going to be honored at the Houston Peace and Justice Center this weekend.
Yes, I was listening, and I believe he is definitely hitting on some things, but I want to say I think it's way much more than that. You ever heard Bea Richards' letter to the white woman?
No, who's that?
Bea Richards. So you got to look her up. She just wrote a poem to the white woman how they in their prison, they are also imprisoning every other woman. And until they liberate themselves, then no other woman can be liberated. But you have to look it up.
I'm going to look it up. I like that, but let me just say that I don't think you are in conflict with what Brother Theis says. Let me put it this way. He is saying, and I hope everybody understood what Doc said. He said, you are not going to convince, you can put all this stuff out there, right? You can write all of that stuff. A person that is not going to accept, a lot of men are not going to accept that they're sexist and misogynist. A lot of white women will not accept that they're racist. So you could tell them that and read that poem to them forever come. They won't accept it. So you can't get their vote by pointing out a truth. But you can get their vote by pointing them to the boogeyman that's causing their pain. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
In other words,
and my
you
other
tell.
point is,
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, no, go ahead. You finish it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so what Doc is saying, and I think it's an important concept and it's a pragmatic concept, is make it active and not something that they have to do to themselves, but what somebody is doing to them. Okay? Calling them a racist means you have to accept that on your own, which a lot of people don't accept their deficiencies. But telling them that their problem is caused by something else and the solution to the problem is voting Democratic, that is what Trump lies to them, and that is how he gets their vote.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, riddle me this. I also believe what he's saying about the Democrats and how they basically done it to themselves. They've been going the same way of turning against the working class for 30 years now. So it's just it comes to a breaking point for people. You know, they don't care. They didn't care that, you know, it was this is a deciding factor of their rights. It's more like I'm tired.
Melissa, you're right. And by the way, I'm at 4:01 and have to go. But let me just tell you this, Melissa. You nailed it. First of all, Doc puts it in the way that he always does. I go to some of his classes sometimes, and I think when we talk about when I talk about the Democratic Party, I'm not talking about the elitist Democratic Party. I'm talking about the Democratic Party that we progressives are going to take over. You follow?
Okay, last part. And it was
Real
also
quick.
spiritual. It was over Trump. It wasn't about Trump. It was a spiritual movement. And when they put Beyonce up there, you know, these Diddy parties was unacceptable. So, you know, white people was like,
Okay,
all right,
that part I didn't follow that part. But let me. I gotta go, my sister.
It was different. All
right, gotta go, sis. Thank you for calling, Melissa. Anyway, folks, look, I want to thank you guys for a great show. You guys are like the bomb. Okay, thank you, Doc, for calling in on the show. I think your message is very important, so important that I'm going to cut it out and make an independent blog out of it, because I think it is very, very important that we got to get out there. And all the people that I didn't get a chance to read your stuff, forgive me, please. Now, I want to ask you before I leave, please support the program. We are remaking not just a party, but we are going to make a difference from the grassroots, as Doc was just talking about. It has to be done from the grassroots. And we also have to make sure that people understand that the enemy is, in fact, the billionaire. Please support the program by becoming a paid member of our newsletter. That is at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. You get to read all of my books, including As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. Look, How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, and many other books you get to read online as a paid subscriber of our newsletter. So I ask kindly again, my brothers and sisters, please make sure we can continue to do this by becoming supporters. Click on the link. I just gave it to you. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Anyway, I got to get out of here. We're 3 minutes overdue, which means I'm going to have to do more video processing. My name is Egberto Willies. Love you all. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics and Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.